One thing that's true for all moms, we have a lot of stories to tell. Some are silly, some are gross, some bring us to tears. With each story that's shared, another mom feels less alone. So join us as we laugh, learn, and grow together. It's the iMom Podcast. Welcome to this week's episode of the iMom Podcast. I'm Abby, and Chloe, Susan, and Megan are here again. And this week we're talking about kids socializing through screens. I was talking with one of our colleagues, Natasha, and her son just turned 12 and wanted a phone for his birthday, and they got him a phone. And they made him sign iMom's cell phone contract. And I was like, yes, way to use our printables. But then shortly after they gave him the phone, he requested social media. And she said they declined. But a few days after that, he came to them in a suit with his iPad and a presentation on why he should be allowed to have Snapchat.
That's so cute.
Yeah. And so she said he proceeded to present his case with a slideshow and how it would help him connect with friends. And her immediate response was, well, that's why we got you the phone, was because you could text or call. That is connecting with friends. But apparently, that's not quite enough. And she said after a little more Q&A, they agreed to discuss it, but they didn't make any promises. And then eventually they did allow him to have it. He had to let her follow him or whatever it is on Snapchat. But within, I don't know the amount of time, but she made it sound like it was very short. She said they took it away. And I asked why, and she said, we just saw how easy it was for him to be distracted and spend way too much time on it, just kind of snapping nonsense to friends. But it was interesting that as soon as he had the phone, he wanted more social media. He wanted more ways to connect. And that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today is how do you navigate limiting screen time, keeping your kids safe when screens, whether it's through social media not Facebook, but Instagram or Snapchat or TikTok, whether it's through that or online gaming or just texting and talking, I suppose. How do you find the balance between limiting that and then allowing them to still connect with people? And that's how a lot of kids connect these days. So that's kind of what I wanted to chat about with you ladies. Do you think that every generation of parents has had the same concern? Not specifically about your kid being on social media, but I remember my mom saying, you're on the phone too much. You girls are always talking on the phone. Do you think that there's always going to be this change in communication and kids wanting to do the newest thing and parents struggling with it?
Yeah, I think the thing that's always been a struggle, no matter what generation, is your kids having too much exposure to other kids. Because again, there's healthy preoccupation with your peers and there's an unhealthy preoccupation with your peers. And so, I think it was easier in the past because when they came home, they came home. As they get older, there's more and more of that. They play sports. So they go from school interacting all day to sports or extracurricular activities interacting with their peers, and then they come home. But it's younger now because of social media. They don't have to even be involved in something to interact with other kids. They can do it right from their bedroom. And I think the other thing is that, let's say Snapchat, so much of it isn't really connecting with people. It's watching what everyone's then going to talk about the next day.
I think that's true. I think that it's wanting to be part of the conversation, even if you are not actually participating in the conversation, wanting to be in the know, even if you're not, talking about it. You know what I'm saying, Chloe?
Snapchat's a little more direct than TikTok, Instagram, where you're scrolling. You're not scrolling on Snapchat as much as you are having a one-on-one conversation.
But do you think that's true about TikTok? Though, that you want to be on social media, even if you're not socializing, but it enables you to know what's going on.
Yeah. And I think to Natasha's point, whether it's Snapchat or TikTok, whatever you're using the app for, it really gives an avenue to not be present wherever you physically are. Mm-hmm. You're in 5 different places. You're in 5 different conversations with different people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the plethora of content is so distracting.
It's
whether
it's distracting.
Your friend talking or whether you're watching what everybody else is watching because it's gone viral.
Well, and It's just, there's this really funny TikTok audio where it has a bunch of popular audios playing at the exact same time. And it's like very annoying and chaotic, but it's like, this is what my brain's like. And it is, because you hear the same sounds over and over and over again, and it clouds your brain. Like, it really does. It just kind of limits you from having an organic thought.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that what you just said about clouding your brain, it worries me that we don't really know exactly how all these things are affecting our brains. It's all so new.
Exactly.
And our kids are using it so much. But I mean, it does go beyond social media though, too, texting and online gaming and everything like that. But Megan, when did you get your first phone? You were 15?
I was 16 when I could drive. That's when I got a phone.
Did you text with friends or what?
Yes, but it was hard because one, texting, you didn't have an unlimited plan. So I had a limited number of texts I could send. And then also I had the type of phone where you had to hit the key 3 times to get the letter you needed. So we didn't text a whole lot because it was expensive and it took forever, but that tells you how old I am.
Take us back, Megan. What kind of phone was it?
Oh, my first phone was the slide up one, not the cool kick, not the, what was it, the sidekick? Not that. I had the one that like slid up.
Oh, I like
Which
it.
was not cool. No one had that phone. I think it was just the cheapest phone that my parents could get me.
Isn't it funny how we all adapted though, like to the hitting the button 3 times to get a letter? It seems so inconvenient, but we got really good at it. You know, your thumbs move fast.
I'm surprised I don't have carpal tunnel. I mean, I could hit that thing so fast.
Right. That's funny. So do you think that there was any type of socialization for you through that, or were you really still doing the traditional stuff?
I mean, maybe some, like if a guy wanted to get out of like having to call you or something like that, maybe you'd get a text. But I just feel like we did a lot of calling still. I mean, I'm old. There's a lot of calling, a lot of talking at school, talking in the hallway.
Yeah.
Maybe some text, but not a lot.
So here's a thought that kind of blew me away. I want to run it by you guys. It's from the book, It's Complicated, The Social Lives of Networked Teens. The author, Dana Boyd, says, teenagers would love to socialize face-to-face with their friends, but adult society won't let them. Teens aren't addicted to social media. They're addicted to each other. They're not allowed to hang out the way you and I did, so they've moved it online. So what they're saying is, we as parents have become so protective, I guess, over our kids. We don't let them ride their bike over to someone's house or hang out, do whatever. We've become so protective that kids are finding a way to socialize.
I have a controversial theory that kind of is conflicting with that. Maybe some of it is the security aspect, but if we were really concerned about the security aspect, I think people would open their eyes to what social media is. I feel like kind of we've gotten a little bit lazy.
Yeah.
And like people don't want to have kids over to play or entertain them or keep up with them or whatever it might be. Because it is a lot of work and it's a lot of work on them. And I think people are really busy. So maybe it's not necessarily laziness, but more busyness. People have stuff going on all the time. And I think it's exhausting and more people are working. And so I don't know if I buy the whole, we won't let them ride their bikes to each other's house because it's a safety.
Yeah, that might skew a little younger than we're talking about.
But that is an interesting thought, Megan, and I appreciate that because I had that thought the other day. Like, I haven't been bored in so long. Like, I really crave boredom, and I mean, again, like I don't have kids of that age yet, but I don't know. I guess my thought is like, to what you're saying, Megan, of like we've gotten lazy. Like, is the antidote us just kind of going the extra mile to provide face-to-face opportunities?
Yeah, because if you want to protect your kids, the answer might be driving them to that friend's house and then coming and picking them up at 10 o'clock when you're ready for them to come home, not saying, no, you can't go at all. I was driving home the other night. It was kind of late. It was like probably 10:30. And I went by the grocery store. Like I drove by the grocery store and there were cars of teenagers in the parking lot, like 4 pickup trucks. And like some kids were standing in the bed of the truck and everyone was talking and stuff. And I kind of like found comfort in it. I was like, Like that's how I used to hang out. We would find the McDonald's parking lot and hang out in the McDonald's parking lot. And then I saw a police officer pull into the lot. And I was kind of hoping, I'm like, I hope he's just checking in on them and going, kids, how you doing?
Yeah.
Everyone okay? Be careful. But I thought, are people or police or whoever going to see that and say, break it up? And then, but then could they all have been sitting in their cars, sending TikTok videos to each other, you know, like kind of to support what this author is saying? Are we being so anti, loitering or whatever the specific problem is that we're forcing our kids to move their socialization online? Or is that just being overdramatic? Is that making something out of nothing?
Yeah.
I just don't think that kids like hang out the way that we used to because they're afraid of getting in trouble. Right?
Or their parents are afraid of them getting in trouble. Yeah, I do. I do sense that there's a lot more anxiety about the safety of children. And that's probably justified because of everything that we see in the news. At the same time, I think more families have two income producing parents. So is a lot less time to socialize to spend time on your kids socializing. Like I remember we had a lot of kids. So we'd say, nope, you can have a play date this weekend and you can have a play date next weekend when they're younger before they're driving. At the same time, I do think social media drives this aspect for kids that they have to be doing something when in fact, if they just played at home with their siblings or, played outside or whatever, that's really what they should be doing. That downtime, sometimes it's just okay to play in the backyard by yourself. Right. Now, for the older kids, is it okay for them to be home reading a good book, studying or something, and not interacting all the time? There's such pressure to interact all the time.
Yeah, and to not be left out or to always be part of the conversation and to know what's going on.
Did you feel that, Megan? Because I felt that when I was, middle school, high school. I felt I had so much. If I wasn't doing something like on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I felt like I'm a loser.
Oh yeah, I definitely felt like that, and I didn't even have social media then. I didn't get really social media till like kind of the end of college. But I'm such an extrovert and such a social person that if I didn't have plans on Friday or Saturday or even during the day, even now, I have this problem now. I feel like I have to have social stuff every weekend, and my husband will be like, "Oh, we have one weekend where we don't have anything." Yes, and I'm like, "Oh no, we've got to figure something out. Let's plan something."
That's so interesting because I do remember in high school, at least, like a Friday night or a Saturday night, feeling like there's something going on and I don't know about it. But that was before we had social media or phones. And so you were just kind of at the mercy of who you could call on your house phone and figure out like what the plan. And I don't know how we even did that. Like I'm thinking back, I'm like, that's why I never did anything because I couldn't figure out what was going on.
You got to coordinate with all the people in the house because you share a phone too.
Exactly. Right. We didn't have other lines.
I remember vividly picking up the house phone and calling like a bunch of people and be like, "You want to come over? You can come swim in our pool on like Friday night and have pizza." And I would just like tell people and tell them what time, like verbally, literally have to either see them at school and tell them or have to pick up the phone and call them on their house phone.
Or how about when you want to call one of your friends and you hit the on button and you can hear your mom on it and you're like, "Oh man, I got to wait till my mom's off the phone."
Oh, my dad, we had 4 kids. My dad literally had one of those timers, and we were only allowed to talk for 3 minutes until the timer was out because if he tried to call my mom and one of us was on the phone and it was busy, remember, it would just ring busy, he would get so mad. So we had a timer.
That's why you're such a fast talker, Susan.
You learned to be
Is that it? Yeah,
efficient.
that's it.
Do any of you have experience either as a kid or as a parent with the pressure that parents feel to allow teens to use apps and phones and tech because you don't want your child to be left out? Like, obviously, Chloe and Megan, you don't have that experience as parents, but like my friend, her son, she was just telling me the other day, her son was struggling in math or in some subject, and she wanted to take his phone away, but she didn't necessarily like want to take away all of his the way that he socialized. She said I didn't feel like he should be punished in that way. But taking the phone away, in essence, cut off his access to his friends and the way that they typically socialize. So it's kind of like, how do you take away the phone but not take away their friends?
You take away the phone.
Yeah.
You take away the phone. I had somebody look at me one time and they say, what do you mean? You have total control. Unplug the charger. All these things you can unplug, whether it's the video games, the telephone. They see their friends 9 hours a day in school. That is socialization right there. And really, does a child, even a young teenager, need that much more? There's the weekend for that. Give them their phone on the weekend then. Mm-hmm. But really, school, all their energy should pretty much be used up by the end of the school day or whatever activity they have after that. And if it's not, and they're in high school, then they should be studying if they want to go to college or something, because if they're taking AP classes, they're extremely hard. So I just feel like we have created this. Oh, it's the way they socialize. You forget. I don't know if you've ever substitute taught or anything, or if you're a teacher, perhaps you can relate. These kids are talking all day. I mean, they are in the hall 5 minutes to 10 minutes in between every class, at lunch, before school. They are finding ways to talk. And half the time, the teachers don't even, not half the time, but often the teachers, they have socialization time even within the classroom. I think, so they're getting a lot.
You make a good point. I think that we've allowed friendship and that social time to become an idol for our kids in some ways. Like we have made it a top priority, where maybe when they get home, it does need to be family and downtime and boredom.
Is it because we want them to be well-liked?
Probably. Yeah. Or we're afraid of what will happen if they don't have those friends. I think it just depends on your personality, like what's driving that in you.
Gosh, I remember in high school, like, texting my friends and not hearing back from them and just being like, guess they probably got their phone taken away.
Yeah, exactly.
Assumed.
That's very confident of you. I appreciate that. Yeah. So talking about online video games, I know that that's definitely something that our fatherhood program, All Pro Dad, they have a lot of conversations about that, about kids socializing through video games, because it does tend to be like a father-son or a father-daughter thing a little bit more often. But for a lot of kids, video games are the way that they hang out with friends. Here's some statistics from Pew Research. Nearly a quarter of teens in the survey report that they would give a new friend their gaming handle as their contact information. Nearly 9 in 10 boys who play online games say they talk to their friends while playing. So not only are kids making friends online, they're virtual friends, but they're also using online gaming as a way to connect with kids that they meet in real life. So I think I kind of struggle a little bit with the online gaming stuff because it feels kind of hidden in a way, like if they have headphones on and stuff like that, it feels a little bit like you can't monitor what's happening.
Yeah.
But then I think there's workarounds for that. You can make them not use headphones, and then you can hear the conversations. You can intervene on some of those conversations if you want. But what do you, Susan, did any of your boys play online games?
They did. But we didn't get the live. So they weren't playing. They had to have a friend over to play. Now, I will say, I've seen some kids play live, and I know BJ's son connects with kids that they used to live near that they don't live near anymore. BJ works for us. And it's a great thing. I think it's a game, and games can be fun, especially if they're not playing a game that's particularly violent or whatever. So first you got to look at the game itself. Is it healthy to play? Then you have to say, how much time? Again, the minute you see it become an idol, like they want to spend 5 hours a day, 35 hours a week doing, it's too much. They have to be outside. And that's what I think. What is the balance in all of this? If you have a child who's 15 and they are living for their phone and monitoring everything, stalking every person they know and listening to every conversation and having done it, it's just too much. So it's all about how do we have balance, whether they're playing a game or talking to someone. Is it crossing into the line of obsessive?
Mm-hmm. What do you think? If you have a child who's a little bit shy or socially awkward and socializing through technology, whether it's an online game or social media, is a little bit more comfortable for them, do you think it perpetuates the problem?
I think you're asking if a certain type of child is more likely to love this. Is that what you're saying?
Well, yeah. Is it allowing a child who doesn't feel comfortable socializing in person? Does it allow them
gotcha.
to continue to kind of, what's the word I'm looking for?
Reach out to other kids without having to be face to face.
Yeah. And I'm not saying you should force a child to do something that's uncomfortable, but also, yeah, you need to, come on, kid, get out there, give it a shot.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, again, you have to know your child. I have a son who's very much an introvert and didn't do any social media, still really doesn't. And, had really good friends that he was comfortable with, and that was it. Did not do the whole popular thing. Did not have the plans that Megan had, for sure. But, he grew up then, and as his confidence grew, whatever it was, he has become more extroverted in a way that's comfortable for him. Some of this is the development of the child and the type of the person they are. I don't know if having social media would help or become more of a crutch.
Right.
That they rely on, and then they can't look anybody in the eye when they're 20 years old because they've been relying on the social media crutch or texting people versus having a conversation. I think we really have to know our child and make sure that we're putting boundaries and that we're giving a child access to things that are in a healthy way for them to experiment and try and not go crazy with.
Yeah. In the book, Growing Up Social, the writers, they reminded parents when it comes to like pushing your child out of their comfort zone, you're not trying to turn a shy child into an extrovert. You're just trying to help them relax around others and connect through meaningful in-person relationships. So the goal is not to change the child. It's to, like you said, Susan, help them to be comfortable making eye contact or asking a question of somebody, having even a short conversation. So you don't have to change who they are, but yeah. So what takeaways can we give to a mom who's struggling to find this balance between limiting tech and allowing her child to be social?
I think getting back to the mindset of this is not your child's phone, it's your phone because you pay for it. It's your phone. You're just letting your child use it. I think that's a good first start. And then knowing that, our phone, we're not servants to our phone. Our phones serve us. So, like, putting technology back in its place.
I'd say too, and I know that I am going to struggle with this as a parent because I am such an extrovert and so social that I will always want my kids to be included and well liked. But one thing that I think back to in my childhood, we didn't have cable all growing up.
Same.
So I never was like, if all the kids were at school and we're talking about the latest Disney movie or Disney show, I literally had zero clue what they were talking about because we didn't have cable.
Me too, Megan.
And it was okay. I mean, I didn't love that. I didn't love not being in the know, but at the end of the day, it wasn't the end of the world. And so if they are like excluded for something for a little bit because they don't have their phone and they're not up on the latest topic or gossip or whatever it might be, it's okay. Like they're going to survive and they'll end up catching up. And it's just okay for them to not have it. I know easier said than done because I know this is something like I feel like I'm going to be like your friend, Abby. If my kids get in trouble and I have to take away their phone, I'm going to feel really bad.
If your friend has friends who are excluding them because they don't, know the latest show or they're not on the latest trend or whatever, they're not good friends. They should be their friend because of who they are. So again, Megan, I agree with you. I think I'm going to struggle with it a lot more than, but it's just that's something.
No, I think these are what you just said is one of those moments where your child can grow in character in like a safe, guarded environment that you're there to kind of walk them through. It's one of those times that, all right, well, you're not going to like this, but this is helping you grow. This is making you stronger.
And I think it's good discipline for as you get older and you become an adult to be able to say, okay, I'm going to put my phone down for the next 8 hours so I can knock something out or whatever it might be. Because I feel like because I didn't grow up with a phone, I didn't get one till I was 6. Well, I got one when I was 16, but I didn't grow up with social media and all the distractions we have now. Sometimes I catch myself having to like discipline myself to focus because it's just super easy to get distracted. So it's better that they learn to have that discipline at an early age than later on, I think.
Susan, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I do see that we are becoming increasingly desirous of feeling like we have to give our children everything. Whether it's access to social media or the latest, greatest phone, or, and that's not great parenting. All what we really should be focused on is, relationship, loving our kids well, making sure they're balanced, making sure they're healthy, and spending as much time as we can with them. And not, them being with their friends is not the greatest thing. They're in development, and there's so much that developing that goes on amongst peers that just isn't always the best thing.
Right. And I think if we want them to change, we have to be willing to also change. So these things that we're trying to do, whether it's limiting evening time on phones or contacting friends after hours, that means that we're going to have to engage with them more. And so we might have to put our phones away. We might have to step away from work, or, sometimes it's going to be inconvenient for mom and dad. And the word inconvenient feels wrong because these are our children and this is time spent with our children. So it's not that it's inconvenient, but it's work.
Yeah.
Parenting is work. All right. So here's your hypocritical moment of the day. We would love to socialize with you. Find us on Instagram, imom.com, and definitely engage with us in this post. Thanks for listening. Thanks for listening to the iMom podcast. iMom is the motherhood program of the nonprofit organization Family First. Along with our fatherhood program, All Pro Dad, we exist to help you love your family well. Subscribe to our daily email, the iMom Minute, by going to imom.com/subscribe and get tons of great ideas, insight, and inspiration. The iMom podcast is hosted by me, Abby Watts, along with Susan Merrill, Megan Tigner, and Chloe Blumenthal.